Hi, Chip Dornell, ahead on the left. It seems to me there's a lot of talk in the media recently about how divided America is. I like to keep things in perspective, and the question I have is, are we more divided than we've been before? Politics in a democracy requires controlled conflict. There are always issues and policies that we're arguing over and compromising over and coming out with a solution. That's what we're supposed to do. And I'm not naive. I know there seems to be a lot of turmoil going on in our politics today, but for the most part, to me, it seems like it's all going on one side of the spectrum. Stay with me. In 1991, far-right conservatives adopted a name for their opposition to progressive movements, and they called it the culture war.
This is radical feminism, the agenda that Clinton would impose on America. Abortion on demand, a litmus test for the Supreme Court, homosexual rights, discrimination against religious schools, women in combat units. It is a cultural war as critical to the kind of nation we shall be as the Cold War itself, for this war is for the soul of America.
And at the time, they were engaging in a zero-tolerance policy. They had zero tolerance for anyone who didn't fit within the traditional demographic of the Republican Party. They had become openly hostile to groups like feminists, social justice groups, gays, peace activists, etc. Part of it was a response to the civil rights movement, after which they felt that they were the ones who had been in charge of doling out equality and rights, and they felt like they had given out enough equality and rights and there was no more to go around. That was it. No more demands. It wasn't about policy or governing for them. It was about control. They felt like they were losing their control on America, and as a result, we had the culture war. By 2012, the culture warriors were calling themselves the Tea Party. And in that year, in Indiana, in the Republican Senate primary, the longtime Republican Senate incumbent Richard Lugar was defeated by a Tea Party favorite, Richard Murdoch. And part of the key to Richard Murdoch's success was his disdain for cooperation. Here is a clip of Richard Murdoch giving his definition of bipartisanship.
Well, I have a mindset that says bipartisanship ought to consist of Democrats coming to the Republican point of view.
Now, bear in mind, when polled, a majority of Americans consistently said they wanted Congress to work together and to compromise. One more time. When polled, a majority of Americans consistently said they wanted Congress to work together and to compromise. I think that's what I said. So now the Tea Party was skewing the Republicans out of the mainstream. Richard Murdoch went on to lose the general election, not because of his remarks on bipartisanship, but because of his unfortunate remarks on rape and abortion. And conservative media did its part by stoking social paranoia with slander and hyperbole. So, Black Lives Matter was a terrorist group. Gay people wanting protection from workplace discrimination were trying to normalize immorality. And if you wanted to close the gender pay gap, you were a feminazi trying to castrate men. These aren't direct quotes, but if you've ever listened to conservative media, these do sound like familiar talking points. And then they began to employ a strategy of taking issues that weren't really issues and then turning them into really huge issues. For example, transgender people have been around forever, and they've been using whichever public restroom they felt comfortable using forever, without it being an issue. And then in 2016, Caitlyn Jenner made culture warriors feel uncomfortable, and that's when they came up with a series of laws regulating where transgendered people should go to the bathroom, where, of course, again, there had been no problem before. They did it in the name of protecting children. Not transgender children, just the normal ones. And then they began to crow to the rural voters, the Democrats care more about putting transgender people in your bathroom than they care about you. And that's how Donald Trump became president. Sort of. And now whenever Donald Trump fails at something or has a bad day, which is about every day, he makes appeals to his base. Punish black athletes, ban Muslims, kick transgender people out of the military, deport the dreamers. heightening or appealing to people's bigotry is what causes division. And then to deflect accusations of bigotry, they were programmed to play the victim. So gay marriage infringed on their religious freedom somehow. Protesting police brutality is racist against white people somehow. Or they pretended that they were actually protecting the people they were actually feeling threatened by. So if you wanted to close the gender pay gap, that actually hurts women rather than helps. So with their victimhood and their shoddy logic, they went on not only trying to obstruct any progress in governing, but also dividing their own party. Just the other day, fired White House person Steve Bannon announced that he was going to go after every sitting Republican human in the Senate. That's what he's doing. That's the Republican Party. That's the Republican Party now. And most elected Republicans would be so much happier if there never was any culture war. Because, let's face it, times change and so do attitudes. For example, currently, 62% of Americans support gay marriage. But these guys have to get out their gay hate for their base who just can't friggin' let it go. And as much as people like to claim that it's both sides,
it's both sides. It happens on both sides. Both sides do it. Well, it happens on the other side, too.
It's not happening on the other side. The Democratic Party is somewhat more moderate and tolerant. Conservative Democrats serve freely without being threatened or primaried or any of that jazz. Meanwhile, there are no liberal Republicans. Moderate Republicans have been all but decimated. And now conservative Republicans are being threatened by Steve Bannon for not being conservative. So is America more divided than it's ever been? Not for people like me. The way I look at it, all the division is going on in one particular political area. The Republican base has been ginned up to be so contrary that just the appearance of compromise is enough to remove a Republican from office. They selected a president who got the biggest cheers, and not for promoting diversity and unity and compromise. He got the biggest cheers for calling his opponents names. He got the biggest cheers for demonizing Muslims and Mexicans. He got the biggest cheers for going after the press. He got the biggest cheers for promoting violence against protesters. Vindictive, 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 vindictive. And that vindictiveness appealed to his base, which included, and we all know this is a fact, white supremacists. So, if you think that we are more divided than we've ever been before and that we need to come together, well, you're part right. Someone needs to get it together.
Well, are you ever concerned that you might be on the wrong side of history? If people looking back 20, 30 years from now, well,
I am on the wrong side of history.
Well, then how does that motivate you today? If you are concerned today that you might be on the wrong side?